Hi guys, so I'll be reading The Lightning Thief by Rick Dorian, and the first chapter is called I Accidentally Vaporized My Algebra Teacher. Look, I don't want to be a half-blood. If you're reading this because you think you might be one, my advice is close this book right now, believe whatever lie your mom and dad told you about your birth, and try to live a normal life. Being a half-blood is dangerous. It's scary. Most of the time, it gets you killed in painful, nasty ways. If you're a normal kid reading this because you think it's fiction, great, read on. I envy you for being able to believe that none of this ever happened. If you recognize yourself in these pages, if you feel something is stirring inside, stop reading immediately. You might be one of us, and once you know that, it's only a matter of time before they sense it too, and they'll come for you. Don't say I didn't warn you. My name is Percy Jackson. I'm 12 years old. Until a few months ago, I was a boarding student at Yancey Academy, a private school for troubled kids in upstate New York. And am I a troubled kid? Yeah, you could say that. I could say it starting at any point in my short, miserable life to prove it, but things really started getting bad last May, when our 6th grade class took a field trip to Manhattan. 28 mental case kids and 2 teachers on a yellow school bus heading to the Metropolitan Museum of Art to look at ancient Greek and Roman stuff. I know, it sounds like a torture. Most Yancey field trips were. But Mr. Brunner, our Latin teacher, was leading this trip, so I had hopes. Mr. Brunner was this middle-aged guy in a motorized wheelchair. He had thinning hair and a scruffy beard, and a wheelchair. Frayed tweed jacket, which always smelled like coffee. You wouldn't think he'd be cool, but he told stories and jokes and let us play games in class. He also had this awesome collection of Roman armor and weapons, so he was the only teacher whose class didn't put me to sleep. I hope the trip will be okay. At least, I hope that for once I wouldn't get in trouble. Boy, was I wrong. See, bad things happen to me on field trips. Like at my 5th grade school, when we went to the Saratoga battlefield, I had this accident with a Revolutionary War cannon. I was aiming for the school bus, but of course, I got expelled anyway. And before that, at my 4th grade school, when we took a behind-the-scenes tour of the Marine World Shark Pool, I sort of hit the wrong lever on the catwalk and our class took an unplanned swim. And that time before that, well, you get the idea. This trip I was determined to be good. All the way into the city, I put up with Nancy Beaufort, the freckly, redheaded, kleptomatic girl, hitting my best friend Grover in the back of the head with chunks of peanut butter and ketchup sandwich. Grover was an easy target. He was scrawny, he cried when he got frustrated. He must have been held back several grades because he was only the 6th grader with acne and a start of a wispy beard on his chin. On top of all that, he was crippled. He had no excusing him for PE for the rest of his life because he had some kind of muscular disease in his leg. He walked funny, like every step hurt him. But don't let that fool you. You should have seen him run when he was a child a day in the cafeteria. Anyway, Nancy Beaufort was throwing Walt's sandwich that stuck in his curly brown hair, and she knew I couldn't do anything back to her because I was already on probation. The headmaster had threatened me with the death by in-school suspension if anything bad, embarrassing, or even mildly cheating happened on this trip. I'm gonna kill her, I mumbled. It's okay, I like peanut butter. He dodged another piece of Nancy's lunch. That's it! I started to get up, but Grover pulled me back. You're already on probation, he reminded me. You know you'll get blamed if anything happens. Look back on it. I wish I'd decked Nancy Beaufort right then and there. And the school suspension would have been nothing compared to the mess I was about to get myself into. Mr. Brunner led the museum tour. He rode up front in his wheelchair, guiding us through the big echoey galleries, past marble statues and glass cases full of really old black and orange pottery. It blew my mind that this stuff had survived for 2,000, 3,000 years. He gathered us around a 13-foot-tall stone column with the big sphinx on top, and started telling us how it was a grave marker, a steal, for a girl about our age. He told us about the carvings on the sides. I was trying to listen to what he had to say because it was kind of interesting. But everybody around me was talking, and every time I told them to shut up, their chaperone, Miss Dodds, would give me the evil eye. Miss Dodds was this little math teacher from Georgia who always wore a black leather jacket. Even though she was 50 years old, she looked mean enough to ride a Harley right through your locker. She had come to Yancey halfway through the year when our last math teacher had a nervous breakdown. From her first day, Miss Dodds loved Nancy Beaufort and figured I was the devil spawn. She'd point her crooked finger at me and say, "Not now, honey." real sweet, and I knew I was going to get after school detention for a month. One time after she made me erase answers out of an old math workbook until midnight. I told Garber I didn't think Mr. Odds was human. He looked at me really serious and said, "You're absolutely right." Miss Brunner kept talking about Greek feudal art. Finally, Nancy both snickered something about the naked guy on the steel lantern. I said, "Will you shut up?" It came out louder than I meant it to. The whole group laughed. Mr. Brunner stopped his story. I was like, "Mr. Jackson," he said, "did you have a comment?" "No, sir." My face was totally red. Mr. Brunner pointed out the pictures on the steel. "Perhaps you'll tell us what this picture represents." I looked at the carvings and felt flushed with relief because I actually recognized it. "That's Cronus eating his kids." "Yes," Mr. Brunner said, obviously not satisfied. "And he did this because, well, I have my brain to remember. Cronus was the king, god, and god?" Mr. Brunner asked. "Titan," I corrected myself. "And he didn't trust his kids who were gods, so Cronus ate them, right?" But his wife hid baby Zeus and gave Cronus a rock tea and said, and later, when Zeus grew up, he tricked his dad, Cronus, into barfing up with his brothers and sisters. "Ew," said one of the gods behind me. And so there was this big fight between the gods and the Titans, I continued, and the gods won. Some snickers from the group. Behind Nancy both mumbled to a friend, "Like, we're gonna use this in real life. So, like, it's gonna say on our job applications, please explain why Cronus ate his kids." "And why, Mr. Jackson?" sort of said. To paraphrase both its excellent question, does this matter in real life? Busted. Shut up. Nancy hissed, her face seemed brighter than her hair. At least Nancy got packed, too. Mr. Warner was the only one who ever caught her saying anything wrong. He had radar ears. I thought about this question and shrugged. "I don't know, sir." "I see." Mr. Warner had looked disappointed. "Well, half credit, Mr. Jackson. Zeus did indeed feed Cronus to a mixture of mustard and wine, which made him disgorge his other 5 children, who, of course, being immortal gods, have been living and growing up completely undigested in the Titan's stomach. The gods defeated their foe, sliced in pieces, thrown Scythe, and scattered his remains to the dark terrace, the darkest part of the underworld. On that happy note, it's time for lunch. Miss Dodds, would you lead the class back outside?" The class drifted off, the other girls holding their stomachs, the guys pushing each other around and acting like doofuses. Grover and I were about to follow them when Mr. Brunner said, "Mr. Jackson." I knew that it was coming. I told Grover to keep going. Then I turned to Mr. Brunner. "Sir?" Mr. Brunner had this look that wouldn't let you go. Tense brown eyes that could have been 1,000 years old and have seen everything. "You must be learned the answer to my question," Mr. Brunner told me. "About Titans? About real life and how your studies apply to it." "Oh. What you learned from me," he said, "is vitally important. I expect you to treat it as such. I'll accept only the best from you, Percy Jackson." I wanted to get angry. This guy pushed me so hard. I mean, sure, it was kind of cool in tournament days when he dressed up as a student for and shouted, "What ho!" and challenged us to a sword point against Jack to run the board and name every Greek and Roman person who had ever lived, and their mother and what god they worshipped. But Mr. Brunner expected me to be about as good as everybody else. Despite the fact I had dyslexia and attention deficit order, and I never made it grade above a C- in my life. No. He didn't expect me to be good, he expected me to be better, and I just couldn't learn all those names, facts, and much as left spell them correctly. I learned something about trying hard. While Mr. Brunner took one long, sad look at the steel like he'd been at this girl's funeral. He told me to go outside and eat my lunch. The class gathered on the front steps of the 5th Avenue Museum. We could watch the foot traffic. Overhead ahead, a large storm was brewing, with clouds blacker than I'd ever seen over the city. I figured maybe it was global warming or something, because the weather all across New York State had been weird since Christmas. We had massive snowstorm, flooding, wildfires from lightning strikes. I wouldn't have been surprised if there was a hurricane blowing in. Nobody else seemed to notice. Some of the guys were pelting pigeons with Lunchable crackers. Nancy Whippet was trying to pickpocket something from a lady's purse, and of course Miss Dodds wasn't seeing a thing. Grover and I sat on the edge of the fountain away from everybody else. We thought that maybe if we did, that everybody else would know we were from that school. A school for loser freaks, who couldn't make it elsewhere. Attention? Nah, I said. Not from Brenna. I just wish he'd laid off me sometimes. I mean, I'm not a genius. Grover didn't say anything for a while. Then when I thought he was going to give me some philosophical comment, maybe for what I said, "Can I have your apple?" I didn't have much of an appetite, so I let him take it. I watched the stream of cabs going down 5th Avenue and thought about my mom's apartment, only a little ways uptown from where I sat. I hadn't seen her since Christmas. I wanted so bad to jump in the taxi and head home. She thought maybe glad to see me, but she'd be disappointed, too. She took me right back to Yancey, remind me that I had to try harder, even if it was my 6th school in 6 years. I was probably going to get kicked out again. I wouldn't be able to stand the sad look she gave me. Mr. Brunner parked his wheelchair at the base of the handicap ramp. He had zero while he read a paperback novel. A red umbrella stuck up from the back of his chair, making it look like a motorized cafe table. I was about to unwrap my sandwich when Nancy Buffett appeared in front of me with our early friends. I guess she got tired of stealing from the tourist and dumped her half-eaten lunch in Grover's lap. Oops, she grinned with crooked teeth. Her friend's freckles were orange, as if somebody had spray painted her face with liquid Cheetos. I tried to stay cool. School counselor had told me to be many times. Count to 10 gives you control of your temper. But I was mad. My mind went blank. A wave roared in my ears. I don't remember touching her, but the next thing I knew, Nancy was sitting on a butt in the fountain. Percy pushed me! Miss Dawes materialized next to us. Some of the kids were whispering, "Did you see the water?" Like, it grabbed her. I didn't know what they were talking about. All I knew was that I was in trouble again. As soon as Miss Dawes was sure poor little Nancy was okay, she promised to get a new shirt, the museum, gift shop, etc., etc. Miss Dawes turned to me. There was a triumphant fire in her eyes, as if I'd done something she'd been waiting for all semester. "Now, honey." I know, I grumbled. I'm not erasing workbooks. That wasn't the right thing to say. "Come with me." "Wait," Grover up. It was me. I pushed her. I stared at him stunned. I couldn't believe he was trying to cover for me. Miss Dodds scared Grover to death. She glared at him so hard his whiskery chin trembled. "I don't think so, Mr. Underwood," she said. "But you will stay here." Grover looked at me desperately. "It's okay, man. Thanks for trying." "Honey," barked at me. "Now," Nancy Buffett snarked. "I gave her my dollars. I'll kill you later, stare." Then I turned to face Miss Dodds, but she wasn't there. She was standing at the museum just way on top of the steps, gesturing impatiently at me to come on. How did you get there so fast? I have moments like that a lot, when my brain falls asleep or something, and the next thing I know, I missed something, as if a puzzle piece fell out of the universe, left me staring at the blank space behind it. The school counselor told me it was part of the ADHD in my brain misinterpreting things. I wasn't so sure. I went after Miss Dodds. Halfway up the steps, I glanced back at Grover. He was looking pale, cutting the sides between me and Mr. Brunner, like he wanted Mr. Brunner to notice what was going on. Mr. Brunner was always opening his novel. I looked back. Miss Dodds has disappeared again. She was now inside the building at the end of the entrance hall. Okay, I thought, she's gonna make me buy a new shirt for Nancy at the gift shop, but apparently that wasn't the plan. I followed her deeper into the museum. When I finally caught up with her, we're back in the Greek Roman section, except for us. The gallery is empty. Miss Dodds stood with her arms crossed in front of me. Big marble frieze of the Greek gods. She's making this weird noise in her throat, like growling. Even without the noise, I would have been nervous. It's weird being alone with the teacher, especially Miss Dodds. Something about the way she looked at the frieze as if she wanted to pulverize it. "You've been giving us problems, honey." "Yes, ma'am." She tugged at the cuffs at her leather jacket. "Did you really think you would get away with it?" The teacher looked at her eyes, was beyond mad. It was evil. She was a teacher. I thought, it's not like she's gonna hurt me. I'll try harder, ma'am." Then her shook the building. "We are not fools, Percy Jackson," Miss Dodds said. "It was only a matter of time before we found you out. Confess, and you will suffer less pain." I didn't know what she was talking about. All I could think was the teachers must have found the illegal stash of candy I'd been selling on my dorm room. Or maybe they'd realized I'd gone to my essay of Tom Sawyer from the internet without even reading the book. They were going to take away my grade, or worse, they were going to make me read the book. "Well, ma'am, I don't... Your time is up." The worst thing happened. Her eyes began to glow like barbecue coals, her fingers stretched, turning into talons. Her jacket melted into large leathery wings. She wasn't human. She was a shriveled hag with bat wings and claws and a mouthful of yellow fangs. She was to slice me to ribbons, then things got even stranger. Mr. Brunner, who had been out in front and seen a minute before, rolled his chair into the doorway of the gallery, holding a pen. "What ho, Percy!" he shouted and tossed the pen in the air. Miss Dodge looked at me. With a yelp, I dodged and felt talons slash there next to me. I snatched the ball pen out of the air, but when it hit my hand, it wasn't a pen anymore. It was a sword. Mr. Brunner's sword, which he always used at tournament days. Miss Dodds spun towards me with a murderous look in her eyes. My knees were jelly. My hands were shaking so bad I almost dropped my sword. She saw, "Die, honey." She flew straight at me, and an absolute terror ran through me. I did the only thing that came naturally. I swung the sword. The metal blade hit her shoulder and passed clean through her body as she was made of water. Yes. Miss Dodds was a sandcastle on a power fan. She swelled into yellow powder, vaporized on the spot, leaving nothing but a small sulfur and a dying screech, and chilled evil in the air. As if those two glowing red eyes were still watching me. I was alone. There was a ball pen in my hand. Mr. Burner wasn't there. Nobody was there but me. My hands are trembling. My lunch must have been contaminated with magic mushrooms or something. Had I magicked the whole thing? I went back outside. It started to rain. Grover was sitting by the fountain, and musing after tilted over his head. Nancy Buffett was still standing there, soaked from the swimming fountain, grumbling her ugly friends. When she saw me, said, "I hope Miss Kerr whipped your butt." I said, "Who?" "Our teacher, duh!" I blinked. We had a new teacher named Miss Kerr. I asked Nancy what she was talking about. She just rolled her eyes and turned away. I asked Grover where Miss Dodds was. He said, "Who?" And he paused first. He wouldn't look at me, so I thought he was messing with me. "Not funny, man," I told him. "This is serious." Then I boomed overhead. I saw Mr. Burner sitting under his umbrella, reading his book as if he never moved. I went over to him. He looked up and, a little distracted, said, "Ah, that would be my pen. Please bring your own writing utensil in the future, Mr. Jackson." I handed Mr. Burner his pen. I hadn't even realized I was holding it. "Sir," I said, "where's Miss Dodds?" He looked at me blankly. "Who?" "The old chaperone, Miss Dodds, the pre-algebra teacher." He frowned and sat forward, looking mildly concerned. "Percy, there is no Miss Dodds on this trip. As far as I know, there is never Miss Dodds at Yancey Academy. Are you feeling all right?" And that is the end of the first chapter of Percy Jackson and the Lightning Thief.